friends, it's time for another story time. I'm glad to see you again, and as you can see, I'm back in my tree fort. It's such a beautiful night that I thought that after I took my walk today, I would read you a story from the treehouse. So our book today is a really fun one. And today I was working a lot out in my yard and thinking about starting to make some plans for my garden. So my first question to you is, do you have a garden at your house? And my second question to you is, if you do have a garden, what do you plant in your garden? And if you don't have a garden, that's okay. What would you like to plant in your garden? So as we're reading our book tonight, I hope that you will think a little bit about if you could have a garden, what you would want to plant. And our book today is Scarlette Bean. It's by Karen Wallace and it's illustrated by John Berkeley. So we'll keep working on making predictions. We've been doing these for our last two stories, so I want you to think, if you look at the cover of Scarlette Bean, what predictions you'd make about this story. There's some really fun illustrations in this story, as you'll see. So today's book, Scarlette Bean. Here we go. I'm excited. Oh, this is fun. This is just kind of the cover page, but look at how cool that is. That might give you some ideas about what you might like to plant in your garden. Might even get you thinking about some of the vegetables that you like to eat. All right, here we go. When Mrs. Bean first saw her daughter's face, it was as red as a beet, and the ends of her fingers were green. Can you see her fingers? We shall call her Scarlette, declared Mrs. Bean. She will grow tall and strong and do something wonderful. Do you think you had green fingers when you were born? Mr. and Mrs. Bean lived in a house that looked like a garden shed. It was cozy and made of wood, but it was very small. So they worked outside as much as they could. Scarlette lay in her stroller and she listened to the flowers grow, and when she slept, she dreamed of doing something wonderful. On her 5th birthday, Grandfather Bean gave Scarlette a vegetable garden. Her mother gave her a set of tools with wooden handles. Her father built a wooden fence to keep out the rabbits. And he made a white gate that Scarlette could open herself. Start to pick up out here. Scarlette loved her new garden. She pulled up the weeds. She dug in the soil until it was as crumbly as chocolate cake. She planted a row of carrots, a row of onions, and a row of parsley. That night, when she went to bed, the ends of her fingers glowed like green lights. I'm going to let you look at this picture very close. Touch your shoulder if you think there might be some magic happening in this book. The next morning, here it comes, Scarlette ran to her garden. Her carrots were as huge as tree trunks. Her onions were as big as hot air balloons. Her parsley was as thick as a jungle. Everyone in the village came to help. They used bulldozers to dig up the carrots. They drove forklifts to carry the onions. They cut the parsley with chainsaws. Can you imagine? Mrs. Bean's kitchen was too small for so many vegetables, so she made soup in a concrete mixer. Can you find the concrete mixer on this page? The house was too small for so many people. Look what they put the soup in. Can you see right here? What is that? Yeah. So Mr. Bean served the soup in the garden. Everyone said it was the best soup ever, and when it began to rain, they ate second helpings under the table. That night, Scarlette Bean dreamed of something wonderful. She crept out of bed. In one hand, she held a small trowel. In the other, she had lots and lots of seeds. High above the meadow, the moon hung like a pearl in the sky. Scarlett dug a hole and put all the seeds at the bottom. As she covered them with earth, the ends of her fingers flashed like green stars. This book has tricky pages. Wow. The next morning, the sun rose like a huge golden coin. In the middle of the meadow stood a castle made of vegetables. It had turnip turrets and a drawbridge held up by corn cobs. A cucumber tower stood at each corner. Take a second and look at this castle and see what vegetables you might know on this page. Wonder if you might know these vegetables right here. Can you say out loud what those vegetables might be? Mr. Bean couldn't believe his eyes. It was the house of his dreams. Mrs. Bean kissed her daughter's face. "I knew you'd do something wonderful," she whispered. Scarlette Bean was so happy she turned red as a beet, and the ends of her fingers sparkled like fireworks. Oh, that was our last page. Sometimes books trick me and I don't know if it's their last page. But here's the absolute last page. This one doesn't have any words on it. In one of the books we read the other day, I think it was The Stray Dog, that one did not have any words on it on one of the pages either. So if you look at this last page, what words do you think you would put on that very last page? So that's the story of Scarlette Bean. If you think there was magic happening in the story of Scarlette Bean, say whoop whoop. Yeah, I think there might have been a lot of magic happening in this book. I love Scarlette Bean because I love being outside. I love thinking about what I might plant in my garden, and I really, really love thinking about how there's lots and lots of magic in the world. You just have to look very carefully. There's lots of magic. Scarlett had her amazing green fingers that were really magical. She was very good at growing things. So I wonder if you will let me know what things you might like to plant in a garden. And even if you don't have a garden, that's okay. What would you want to plant in a garden? Maybe tomorrow you could even draw a picture of a garden and start to think about what you might want to put in your garden. Could be a magic garden or just a regular old garden. Thanks for coming to Storytime again with me. I will see you again soon. Bye.